Marco, good evening. Happy
Good evening.
public holiday here in New South Wales.
Thank you for having me here, Kate. Nice to see you. Nice to talk to you.
It's a great joy to have you here, and it's a great joy to have you on SoulAdvisor too, because you're one of 10% of us, which is the 10% of men. Uh, and I want to say before we get started, happy Men's Health Week.
Thank you. Thank you. And I feel like we are doing something quite amazing here now.
Yes.
We are giving a good space for this. Definitely
Mm.
needed.
Yeah, like the whole world is calling out to be healthy and well right now, and we've strayed a long way away from that point. And some would argue that it's been harder for men. Some would argue that it's been easier for men, this journey. But I think one thing that we all agree is that being human's not the easiest thing in the world.
No, no.
Mm.
And often because of that, we try to neglect so much about human nature, and so to avoid so much of what we feel as human, no?
Mm,
The
mm, mm.
body, all of our emotions, and uh, yeah, it's an interesting concept, Yeah.
For myself, I think it's such a big concept being a conscious being on this planet, and we have we have had the arrogance to believe that as humans we are, a conscious being on the planet, and that's an evolution away from all the other animals. I feel that
Yeah,
that's doubtful in my head, but I also think that that whole idea of um, that the reason that we haven't been able to think also that lizards and buttercups are conscious is because it's such a big deal being conscious. It takes
yeah,
a lot of holding, doesn't it, as a human? Mm.
100%. And it's a process of grounding. No, I believe it's a process actually to ground actually, not rather than look too much up, up and higher, higher and higher. No, it's more about coming back to the roots and no, in a kind of sense, be humble in the sense of belonging. No,
Mm. Mm. Be humble. That's a big one. And, I think probably we can say in this day and age that lack of humility might have got us to this point, this problematic point where we're looking down the barrel of the potential of
yeah,
ruining the world by our actions. And
yeah,
I wonder, that's a really interesting word that you bring up so early in the conversation of humility and part of being humble is part of understanding that we're part of a bigger picture and only one small part. And I think it's been so tough, or from where I'm looking, it's been really tough for men because they've been asked to be the head of this and the head of that and the head of something other. Um, how? What do you reckon?
Well, I reckon it comes perfect because I was talking about this actually with a man now, this morning, and it's a theme that comes often, especially when we're talking about masculinity or manhood, and we seems like pushed all of us to have this kind of leadership somehow in any kind of areas of our life. It can be relationship, can be work, can be leadership in a broader sense. When we actually, what I can see is that we prevent ourselves, first of all, to be son, to be a son, and to be in that place of receiving, and to be in the place of actually being held and supported. And so we all want to step into this role, but there is still this inner child with all of these conditionings, this child that demands support, but and support for me means coming to a space of togetherness, because
Mm,
that's how we're meant to be together. But again, to ask for the support requires humility, and to be a son requires humility, and not to be in the place of asking, to be in the place of receiving, and to be in the place to learn to be grateful for that,
mm,
right? And
mm,
so then we can step into the leadership, into that sense of direction, into the clarity, into the purpose that are all words, those ones that are so popular in the awakened community.
mm. Yeah.
And,
There's a big thirst for that, isn't there? To come off the pedestal, the pedestal that we place ourselves on, that we ask others to place us on, that we think is ours, and to reconnect, because, when we're that little, and in the belly, we're totally connected. And then when we're out, we're being cuddled and held and all the rest of it. And then this whole pressure, particularly on men, to have to stand alone and be strong is it's tough.
Yeah, and it cut us from a process that is so vital for us, which is the process of grieving. It's grieving now, and it's deeply connected to what we were talking before, like to be able to come back in community, to be able to come back together, allow us to process enormous amount of sense of loss and grief and pressure. And the conditioning of the last thousands of years pushing us towards this individual way of living, individual fast way of living, kind of pull us away from this. And but this connection is so primal in our nervous system. We are wired for this. We are wired for being in touch with nature. We are wired to be in touch with humans. We are wired to be in connection. And when we prevent ourselves to leave this connection, to come back into this space of support, then all of these natural human emotions get stuck.
Yeah, it's like it's such a strange thing to feel that societal pressure to move out of the flow, and to be then in control of the flow, which of course is impossible, because we're all part of nature and it's going to keep flowing. So I think in recent years, people have started to understand a lot more that what trauma does, like that going through the trauma, whether that be a major trauma or a series of minor traumas or witnessing trauma or whatever else, or anything that makes you contract and be scared, moves you out of that flow, because it's a bit scary to be out of control, if you've been through the trauma. So I think maybe, do you think that that's also part of what you're talking about?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. And is that that trauma that we often hold within ourselves as a completely different language, okay? And the language that is often visceral, that is often a body language, that is often a posture, that is often a pattern that we can't see, but because it's so unconscious and that lives in our breath, requires people around to be moved through, because otherwise we fall into the legend of the lone wolf, of the man able to do everything by himself.
The lone wolf, yes.
Yes. And I'm able to do this, and I'm carrying through, and so we create all of this isolation pattern. And isolation is one of the the prevalent causes for major illnesses.
The research recently has talked about the loneliness epidemic in Australia, and I'm sure it's true in other places of the world as well, and that it affects more men than it affects women, for sure. Yeah. That's terrible.
Yes, and I wonder how much of this loneliness, I'm just wondering here, how much of this loneliness can be tracked back to our lineage of fathers and great-fathers and great-great-fathers, because this is not something that are coming up now. We are becoming more aware of this, but it's something that we can track back thousands and thousands of years. And what's a role model of masculinity? What does it mean to be a man? Who taught us to be a man? And we come from generation of war, Second World War, First World War, and all of other major issues. Think about here in this land,
Yeah.
So, right? So there is a cut, there is a space, there is a gap here that is empty, that is painful, and that must be accessed now from the new generation, because we experience an extreme sense of loneliness, like I'm not belonging. Like, where is my mother, where is my father?
Yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it? And even if your mother and father are there, you've been programmed to not connect to your mother and father, and to, now I'm a man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work is about deconstructing all of these conditionings, I believe.
So you're running a men's group still at this point? Are you running or working in a men's group?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm working here in Sydney, in Paddington. Yeah, I mean, it's a space that teach me a lot, teaches me a lot, so much. And I'll please. Yeah.
It must be lovely to come together with a group of men. How does that feel to be in a men's group?
Feels real, feels supportive, feels natural, feels open, but even feels uncomfortable on a certain level, because of course you go to confront certain things. And for the way I organize the circle, there is a sharing, we get to talk, but also there is a lot of touch. And for men, how can be touched by another man, do this thing, can be quite confronting, but it's about awakening the sensibility. It's about awakening the level of sensibility, and to open to a language that is not just verbal. Because what I can see often, we tend to tell stories when we don't want to access the emotion. And so we tell ourselves a lot of stories, and we can go in a lot of talking. And at that point, being able to give space to the primal language, which is made of touch, which is made of breath, which is made of high contact, simple, can really help or facilitate certain process. Of course, in a way that is safe, and in a way that is done with intention.
Absolutely. It's about becoming literate in that way, isn't it? Also, the way that you use, give, accept, touch. It's a kind of literacy that has often been lost in this day and age. And, I get very, whilst there might be really good reasons, it's also, I've heard a lot of my male friends say, I used to be able to give kids a hug, in the playground as a teacher, or if somebody hurts themselves or whatever, or if I'm hanging out with my friends and I've wrapped my arm around their son or daughter because, they need a hug, then now there's a question mark, because I'm seen as a man as being potentially unsafe. And perhaps they say to me, there's been a bit of overkill around the definition of men as a source of danger. And that's very stressful for those particular men that I've talked to. Have you heard that said before?
Well, not in particularly this, but makes sense for the type of conditionings, and makes sense for the type of society that we are in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the issues, or around even around criminality, or around violent death, or comes through men. A lot of these problematics come through that. And this is not to put even for a pressure on men as in general, but to say that here there is a culture that needs to be reframed. 100%. And now everything becomes so distant, because when you perceive things as danger, you become what? Distant. You separate, and again you isolate.
Yeah, you do. And there's that withdrawal not only of men from men, but women from men and men from women, and and that retraction of touch. I think we're very lucky, all of us who are working in the healing professions, to spend a lot of time touching. It's part of
Yeah.
what we do. Part of the healing comes from the touching. And we ran a beautiful program over here called Back is the New Black, and Andrijana Myler was on there. I'm not sure if you saw it, but
Right.
she talked about just how therapeutic, and how the evidence is now in that having someone touch you is deeply therapeutic, and you cannot gain that from touching yourself. And so many of the touch receptors that have very strong responses are on your back, and you can't get to it. You need someone else to do that touching for you. So it's an interesting one.
Yes, and totally agree. And I mean, in somatic therapies, touch is a big thing. Allow that the safety to come through. When we are with men in circle, we often come back all together in circle with a particular man in the middle, working into his stuff, right? And
Mm.
we all put a hand and we touch. And,
Mm.
and it's beautiful to see how that activity facilitates a release,
Mm.
a release from the body, a release from the man, and allow. I mean, it's something that is in our nature. And so
Mm.
perhaps even if you have difficulty to access your emotions, once you are in that environment, you like kind of remember, because it's something that is deeply within us. The touch is in our nervous system.
It's so beautifully simplistic, isn't it, Marco?
Oh,
you
oh,
know
oh,
Healing, our health is our birthright. To be well and happy and present is our birthright. And the other bits and pieces, when you just cut through them and you come back into that reality, then the rest of it melts away, and people have that huge sense of relief. It's
yeah.
So here we are in Men's Health Week, and I wonder if there's anything that you feel would be of benefit to men in general. Like, when you think about men's health, what do you think is the biggest challenge right now?
To ask for support. To ask for support is a challenge
Mm.
nowadays, and I guess even to just start to make a step towards that is no, even just start to see if there are group of men
Mm.
close to you, close to where you are, that you can reach out, that you can be part of, and this can be already a small step, a door that can open for men to start to explore
Mm.
emotion,
Mm.
emotion, simply emotion, simply feelings, simply now that present that you were talking about before. How am I feeling right now? Where is this emotion? Where it is in my body? Am I able to track that down? Am I able to breathe into this emotion? And am I able to share this emotion in a way that is actually now regulate? And I can actually, and that emotion can deeply talk about where I am right now.
Mm.
And
Yeah, such a beautiful thing to be able to do, and so relieving, and so evolving. It helps you move to another level if you can come into that reality of what you're actually experiencing, and not block it off again.
100%, 100%.
Mm. I think we've got that beautiful opportunity coming up this week on Men's Health Week to come to the men's table. And the men's table is all about what you're saying, which is about finding a way to talk frankly, in a very safe environment. That's a committed environment. So this is a men's table entree, which means that it's an invitation to that process as a beginning, but it's also asking the deeper question of, how do you come into a committed relationship with other blokes to talk and hold each other, and be there if, when needed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a very real and beautiful movement. So yeah, I hope a lot of men will join us for that on this Thursday lunchtime.
Mm.
Mm. Look, thank you. I really, I feel like it was a very beautiful talk about the essence of masculineness
Yeah,
and
yeah,
can be. So I truly appreciate having you here and just bringing us straight in there. No, but boom, straight dive deep.
yes, yes. I mean, like,
Mm,
I think the space was really set it for that, and no, it's a honor for me to be here. Thank you for offering this space, and it's definitely now, as I said at the beginning, really
mm,
needed talk and exploration. Yeah.
mm. And let's hope this week is all about that, and we get to a deeper understanding, all of us, of what it is to be a
Mm.
man and a healer. And and I'm really urging anybody that's listening now or will be listening to get in touch with Marco. You'll see below that we've got his connection point through SoulAdvisor to maybe do a discovery call, maybe make a booking, do something that allows you to go a little bit deeper with this conversation.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much, Marco. I'm going to end the broadcast now. So farewell to everybody, and I'll see you on the other side, Marco.
Hello.